Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Terry On. I'm your host, Mandy, and I am joined by Gio, fan favorite.
What up, what up?
Hey, and we're back.
We are.
It's been a minute.
A lot of minutes.
Well, nobody's counting, but since January 10th, we've had someone sick in this house. I'm counting. And then just when I told somebody like, oh my gosh, we're on the mend, everybody's great.
Yeah.
One kid came home with a boot. Another one had a ace bandage wrapped up for an ankle injury, and then another one was homesick from school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't want to say anything out loud.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's been wild. So we've not put out any new episodes for a while, but mainly because somebody was sick, including myself, several times in there. And it was just like a lot going on. And then you've been traveling for work.
Yeah, I've been gone.
Which is great. And I tried, you tried. You set me up with the laptop.
I did.
And it was fine. And I plugged in the 2 cords. But then once I opened it, couldn't make heads or tails of it from that point. Once I opened the program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was in the middle of a class when you were texting me.
Yeah, and my sleepy time starts at like 3:30 p.m. So when you were done with the school day, I was like, sorry, I can't record anymore.
And if anybody follows your Instagram closely, they would have remembered that day because you did a story about it. A hilarious story about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Viral. Viral. Yeah.
Viral, babe. You're viral.
So, well, we really were. We were very viral for several weeks, which is why we didn't record because we were very sick. We had everything. The stomach bug, laryngitis. I think the flu was here. COVID was here. I mean, we literally had everything.
Yeah.
And then some orthopedic situations.
We should be set for the year. Like
I don't know what happened. It came out of nowhere and then it just stayed forever. But I think a lot of people, I think that was what was happening. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so a lot has happened in the world in the last like 6 weeks or since January 10th. And, you know, I remember I made a vow like, look, if you're coming to this podcast, like, and you want me to talk about anything that's like a hot topic, I'm not going to do that. But I do just feel like I have to say, like, it is not lost on me everything that's going on in the world. And I don't ever want to sit here and do a podcast and pretend like I do not care about all of that. I don't ever want to produce a podcast that creates like anger in people. That's like not what I'm going for. But I certainly have a lot of strong feelings and opinions about what's happening in our world right now. And so just in case you're listening and you think, does Mandy live with her head in the sand? I don't.
You do not.
But I do not. I don't. And so I think I'm just navigating the time and the place. Like, is there a space on here to talk about like the climate of our culture, of our administration, all of that? Like, is there a time and a place for that on here? Because, you know, a therapist once told me, Mandy, you don't have to say every thought that comes into your head. And I was like, that sounds not
It's
right.
good wisdom, though.
Nah, what school did you go to? That's not right. And I genuinely was like, wait, what? And so, because to me that felt like, okay, but then like I'm not being truthful. And it's like, hey, not every thought has to be said out loud. So I don't think that every thought I have has to be here. It has to be shared with everyone in the world. I just feel like I have to say, and I don't know why I feel like I have to say it, but like I just don't want it ever to come across as insensitive because I know that a lot of people have a lot of strong feelings about what's happening right now in our world. And I'm not like ignoring that.
Right.
I definitely am. I'm definitely in it, aware. And yeah, so...
When I think there's a time and place to have those conversations. I don't think it's always beneficial to have the conversations. I don't think every person is the right person to have the conversation with. And I don't think it's always the right place.
Yeah, no, exactly. I guess that's why I just want to say, like, we're having the conversations.
And we invite people to have the conversation with us.
But this probably just still isn't going to be the place.
Yeah, this podcast does more about spiritual development, your life's journey, and narrating the highs and lows.
And finding hope, which I think we all need right now, right?
Absolutely.
Like, how do you find hope when you feel uncertainty and all of that stuff? So it's not outside of the realm of what's happening, but to directly talk about, you know, Yeah, I don't want to turn it into a political podcast, I guess is what I'm saying.
Because then it's just a one-sided conversation, and that's no conversation at all.
Yeah.
If we just get on this platform and just spew out our opinions about our current administration or about things going on in our culture, then we don't get to listen as much as we are talking. And that's not a conversation, and that's not how we grow. So better to be invited maybe by a guest or two who is listening and wondering, do you care? Better to be invited into a conversation off the air than to try to make this a place where we're just going to tell you what we think and we believe. No,
I guess I probably didn't need to say any of that, because I think if anybody knows me, I don't think they would ever wonder, does Mandy have an opinion? Yeah. Like, I think there are zero people that wonder if I have an opinion. I think it's more accurate to be like, how many opinions do you have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very accurate question.
Yeah. So I probably could have just not said any of this, to be honest, because like, I don't know. It feels like, yeah, I think there was a time in my life where I had to live with my head buried in the sand, kind of, like, because I just couldn't handle any, like, current events or, like, anything that was real in the news. It just felt like too much. And so I kind of did. I didn't read the news. I didn't engage in it. I was off of social media.
Yeah.
Just because I felt like I couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. And there might be seasons where people have to kind of live like that. But for me now, I feel like, you know, it is... I have the capacity to be involved in the conversations and things like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, the other part of that is sometimes, and the reason why I don't want to make that the topic of our podcast, because sometimes you need a break from that. Sometimes you need to not just talk about things that divide people and talk about things that are scary or concerning or you have questions about or whatever. I think sometimes you just need a space to go that's not that. And it doesn't mean that we don't care or that I don't care. It just means that what I'm learning in therapy, here we go. Here's my free session for everyone, is that you create your like container, and it's okay to put things in this container that are stressful, that cause anxiety, that might be weighing heavily on you, and to like literally just say, okay, thought, I'm putting you in the container. Mm-hmm. I'm going to come back to you. But like right now, you need to stay in the container because I don't want to think about you 24/7.
That's good.
And that's actually like wisdom. It's
that's
not,
really good. Yeah,
it's like not betraying the truth. It's actually just saying like, I have a life bigger than all the things that worry me.
Yeah.
That's dope. So I think, so my therapist has had me working on this container situation. So the first thing we did was like, I got to like describe it. So I had to like visualize it, describe it. Mm-hmm. It's like a pretty basic, it's just like white ceramic with like texture and like a wooden lid. And it's like, it's pretty cute. I'd buy it. But this is where my thoughts, where I like literally visualize, okay, this thing's worrying me. And I did it like a couple times last week. This thing's worrying me. Actually, I did it today because we have plans to go see the Tonight Show get recorded.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon.
So we got these tickets. But then if you read the fine print, it's like, hey, we overbook it. So just so you know, you're not guaranteed a seat even though you have the tickets.
Yeah.
And I just like read it today. And we're supposed to go next week. And so I'm like, oh, I don't know how early we could get in line. I don't know if this is actually going to work out. Should we just bail on this round and try again for tickets another round? And so anyway, while I could feel like my heart rate go up, like literally, because you weren't here, I was by myself. So I couldn't like talk about it. Yeah. And so I was having a million thoughts at one time, like, oh my gosh, if we go all the way up there and stand in the line in February and it's so cold just to get to the line to the front and them say like, you don't have a seat. Yeah. I will be like so sad. But then like, I don't want to not try to go. So anyway, I was thinking about all of this and I could feel like getting a little stressed out about it. Right. Because we have to work out some details and we just don't have any answers yet for those details that we have to work out to see if we can actually make it. But I did. I practiced it. I was like, okay, there's literally nothing I can do right now. And what I would normally do, and this is what happens if you've struggled with anxiety, is it can paralyze you. Well, for some people, I think it can energize them. Some people use their anxiety and become like little like Energizer bunnies around the house. Not me. So if I feel anxiety, I am like paralyzed. Yeah. Like I can't do anything. So I will just, like, I think the technical term is dissociate, which is like, but what we normal people would say is you just check out.
Yeah.
So what I would have normally done is I would have checked out for the 2 hours between the time I read that and the time you got home till I could talk to you. I would have just checked out and gone on autopilot. So I would have wasted my time.
Right.
I would have, like, either read more news articles that would have probably stressed me out more. I would have just sat just sat there, seriously, or like played Block Blast or like something that I would have just checked out. But because my therapist is helping me, well, that's the end of the sentence, because my therapist is helping me. So because she's helping me, like with this visualization of this container, I was able this morning to go like, okay, there's literally nothing I can do about it. So I'm going to put it in the container. I'm going to go do something else. And I'm going to talk about it with Gio when he gets home. And when we talked about it, babe, I wasn't even escalated.
Right.
I wasn't even stressed.
Yeah, we got to a solution very quickly.
I'd like to talk about the magical container. Not only does it hold your thought, it actually seems like it reduces a lot of like the stress around it. So I've done that now a couple times. Like there was another time where I was trying to talk to you about something and we landed on 2 different pages about it, seemingly, but maybe we didn't. Maybe we were just not communicating very well.
Sure.
But you had to leave. So the conversation was like in the middle, but it wasn't like resolved at all.
Right.
And I think for both of us, it's hard when something is left unresolved.
Yeah.
But for me, this container really helps with that because I just said to myself, like, okay, I'm going to put it there. And then we can talk about it the next time that we have time. Where before, I would have ruminated on it.
Yeah.
I would have sent you a follow-up text about it. Yep. I would have called you while you were driving. And I didn't. And by the time it came to talk about it, I actually had resolved all of it in my own head because a lot of it was just something I needed to deal with.
Sure.
You didn't even need to be invited to that conversation. Like I literally just had to deal with it.
Right.
So anyway, that was my free therapy session for everyone. But the container actually really helps, especially if you have a hard time getting out of like an anxiety spiral.
Yeah. So going back to, you brought that up in light of not bringing heavy topics into this podcast because sometimes we need to put those heavy things in that container.
Yeah.
So if you're coming to this podcast, but on the back of your mind are all these worries of life. What's going to happen in my country? What's going to happen in my city? What's going to happen with my bills? What's happening in my job?
How much are we going to pay for eggs, everybody?
How much are we going to pay for eggs next week? You know, all of these things could be things that we put in the container. And hopefully when you come to the podcast, it could be a separation from whatever's in that container to find hope. Because hope could really be the thing that we come back to the container with that helps us deal with whatever we put in the container before we...
I think for some of us, it feels like if we're not constantly like in battle mode or like if we're not always aware or always kind of thinking about it, or it can feel like we're betraying stuff that matters.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's part of what work I've had to do is like, just because you're setting it aside doesn't mean you don't care about it.
Right.
It just means you have to set it down. You have to. With everything, you have to set it down every once in a while because it gets too heavy to carry. And so, yeah, I always want this podcast to be a thing where you leave feeling both hopeful and like you're not alone, but also that you might be more self-aware. Because to your point, babe, like whatever hope you leave with after maybe listening to this, if you've put your heavy thoughts in a container, if you also leave not just with hope, but with self-awareness, then you can go and have conversations that might be heavier and maybe they would go better.
Yeah.
Because you are having more perspective, like better perspective maybe or something.
Yeah,
you know?
Better perspective, and you carry with you into the conversation something lighter than anger, something lighter than worry, something lighter than anxiety. You carry with you whatever you developed in the time that you spent away from the thing. And it's always going to go better. When we can bring into these heavy conversations hope, perspective, peace, wisdom, then they're always going to go better. Otherwise, you just go in circles with each other, with people in relationships or with people of opposing views. You just go in circles and never actually landing anywhere, never actually producing anything. And so then what's the point of the conversation if not to get from point A to point B?
Yeah. Yeah. So all that to say,
containers, people.
Also, and we're back. Containers, people. I'm serious though, like containers, people.
Yeah,
like
containers, people. Put stuff in a container and then just like wait.
And the thing about it is like it's supposed to help your anxiety to know like I'm going to come back to it. And we do that a lot in our relationship. We offer reassurance to each other, right? So like sometimes people in a relationship are not okay with ending an argument or a conversation if they have not resolved every single thing about it.
Yeah.
But some people in a relationship need to walk away and have space and know, hey, I'm not my best self right now. I need time. But what happens is if you don't do that maturely, you end up just walking out. Yeah. Maybe you even leave the house.
Yeah.
And that's like really hurtful and scary. Like if you really get down to it, like you don't, like it's not a great feeling to have someone just like walk out because you like have no information. Are you coming back? Are we actually going to resolve this conversation? Like,
right.
Anyway, so what you and I have agreed on is like offering reassurance. So when we first got married, something that would happen is you would want to leave and go for a walk or a run or something. Mm-hmm. And you wouldn't necessarily take your phone, but you also wouldn't tell me what's going on always. You didn't like give me the whole rundown of like, hey, I need to go for a run to clear my head. I'll be back.
Yeah.
And so we had to have a conversation about that. Like, hey, you can't just do that. Like, go for the run, but can you offer me reassurance before you go?
Yeah.
But then just recently, like a month ago, I needed to go for a drive because I was really upset.
Yeah.
And like really like a white hot rage, which it's fine. I'm talking to my therapist. It's not fine, but it's perimenopause. I don't know what else to say about it. It's like, I don't know. It's weird. I wish I never experienced it, but here we are. So anyway, I had a white hot rage about a couple things and, you know, perimenopause plus raising teenagers plus a lot of other things is like a very bad combination, I feel like. So I'm like really truthfully working on it.
It's tough. It's
but
rough.
Is it tough, babe? Is my perimenopause tough for you?
No, not for me. I'm saying for you.
So it is. It is. And anyway, and so not proud of it, but hit a pretty low and got very frustrated.
Yeah.
And very angry.
Yeah.
And I needed to go for a drive so I could yell at the top of my lungs inside of a safe space. Mm-hmm. And not scare the children. So I left, and I was also mad at you. And anyway, so I left and I got in my car and it was like my tough girl move to leave and go out for a minute. But I remembered, one, I didn't say anything to you when I left. Like I didn't reassure you.
Right.
But I was going to send you a text. But then I looked down and I didn't bring my phone. So I got to the end of our street and turned around and came back because I remembered our agreement. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to leave you hanging like that. It's not worth it. I don't have a point like that to prove. And it's stupid. And I thought to myself, if I was on the receiving end, I'd want the same from you.
Sure. Like
if you realized you forgot your phone or you didn't offer reassurance. So anyway, offering that reassurance is something that you and I have kind of committed to doing. And when we get it wrong, I think there's an opportunity to make it right.
Yeah,
quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And ironically, out of the two options you mentioned, I struggle with the first. Like it's hard for me to walk away from a conflict unresolved for many reasons, which
that's for another podcast episode.
And so I think that the most loving thing that you can do for yourself and for your spouse, which I've had to learn and I'm still learning to do well, is that the space away from the conflict, the space away from the heavy conversation or from the heavy thing is just as important as the reassurance and hope of coming back to it.
Yeah, because babe, every time you go for a run, you come back different.
Yeah.
Even though you don't want to go, well, maybe you do want to go. But even though you resist going or you resist having space from the argument,
Yeah.
every time you go, it's like something happens.
Yeah.
You do come back different.
Yeah. No, it's a great opportunity for me to hear from the Lord.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens when I go on my
and
runs.
probably honestly just to get some of that tension like out of your body.
Yeah, that's who there's a physical component and a spiritual component that happens out there, where there's this picture of running from something but running to something. But I think there's something beautiful about the fact that I'm running back to the thing I'm running from. So there's just something that happens even on a mental and artistic, way for me that helps me to run away from it, run to Jesus, and then run right back to the thing and deal with it in a more
Yeah, and what do I always say
way.
as soon as you walk through the door when you get back?
You good now? You better?
That's what I say. You better now? And then you usually say, yeah, babe, sorry, I was whack. And I was like, thanks for apologizing. And then I normally say, I think maybe I should apologize for something, but I don't know. I don't really feel it. And then we usually have a good laugh.
Yeah. And so I think that reassurance of coming back is also something good that we all practice, because I think mental health awareness has kind of become a crutch. I was just listening to a lady speak on this week. Mental health awareness has become our crutch and a replacement for avoidance. Everything's a trigger, everything's a boundary, and so I need to distance myself, and in the name of protection, I will just not deal with this thing because I have to have firmer boundaries and I got to protect myself. Well, it just ends up becoming a different version of avoidance. And so we don't grow resilient. We just learn how to hide with better labels on it.
Yeah, no, because I think there's a time and a place for knowing, okay, I need some distance or space for this, but it's not forever, and it's not just for putting up a wall between whatever's happening, right? So I can think of a couple instances in my mind where I feel like, oh, I do need a boundary here or I need space here, but there's like a time limit or there's like an expiration date for it or there's a goal for it, right? It's not just like you're dead to me, don't talk to me again.
Yeah.
Or that's a trigger, so we can't do that. If I bring up like, hey, that, like, yo, I feel triggered, and I don't even like the word anymore, but I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Because it is overused probably. But I do think it's like this new thing where people are realizing, oh, the feeling inside my body actually means something. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I do want to give like the benefit of the doubt on that of like, I think this might be new news for people.
Right.
But I think you can't just leave it at, hey, that's triggering for me, so stop doing it. I think it's, oh, I actually think I was probably triggered, so let me work through this, right?
Right, that part.
Yeah. So like, I think there probably is a little bit of a difference there. But yeah, no, you have a harder time like leaving it, where I think because I can feel it in my body so much when we have conflict.
Yeah.
I need the space because I'm at like such a heightened level inside my body. Like it feels like it's on fire.
Yeah.
I just like, and I lived that way for so long that I like don't want to do that to myself anymore. And I just know like if we get space and I can like come down from this, I could have a much more productive conversation.
Yeah.
Because like I can't think straight. I'm not going to be nice. Like, and that's not the version of myself I'd like to be. So if I'm asking for space, it's actually because I want this to go better, not because I don't want to deal with it.
That's dope.
So I think if that's your motive, which it should be, then it's gonna go better.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
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 So we normally start, this is a very long opening, so we normally start with a seashell story, which is like a story of, like an unexpected kind of answer to prayer or like a little gift that appears in our day or something like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't have one prepared. Can you think of one on the spot?
A major one. Absolutely.
Oh, what?
I'm living in one right now. So we've talked about this on the pod. Last January of 2024, I had kind of a scare with my appendix bursting and sitting with it burst for about 10 hours, 8 hours, something crazy like that. And then having a life-saving moment with the doctor. I come out of it. I recovered well, and thanks be to God and to modern medicine being there to help. In that month that I was recovering, we were worried about finances because...
And I didn't have my container then.
You didn't have your container yet. And
so I was very worried.
Very worried. And I wasn't able to work physically. I had to rest. I had to recover from not only the burst appendix that also had some repercussions, but then also the surgery. So for a whole month, I wasn't working. God's people, family, friends, even neighbors came through, and God provided for us in such a way that we are just still giving thanks to, right? Well, that February, I got a call from this company to go do a workshop in a school to teach high schoolers about abusive relationships and developing healthy ones. Awesome opportunity. It was a month long. I'm in New York 4 days a week teaching in a high school on this topic to high schoolers. Well, that opened up the floodgate to a lot of opportunity throughout 2024. That opened up a lot of favor. Us just being obedient before my burst appendix to tithe to the Lord, to be committed to giving back to God what belongs to Him, no matter what our bank account said, opened up in February after recovering this floodgate of opportunities, right? Where I've been speaking in schools, doing all these awesome workshops, and it's been truly the favor of God because I've done next to nothing to earn or create these opportunities. God has just been opening doors that I can't even explain to you how they've opened.
I mean, it's wild. And
it's
that is like,
wild.
If you look at a lot of, I mean, I think it happens more times than not that you get opportunities and jobs not because you hustle, even though that might work for some people. I do think a lot of it is it's who you know. It's relationships that you formed over the years, and it's stuff that kind of comes out of the woodwork years later from somebody you met who knew somebody who knew somebody.
And who you were in those relationships that matters when someone asks, hey, do you know anybody? And they think of you.
Yeah.
Because you were a person of integrity, you were kind, you were noble, all those good things that we're called to be. Well, my name got brought up to this company as a candidate for this gig. And so 2024 was a very good year, but only because God opened doors and God made it a good year for us.
Which is wild because the year leading up to that, right, you had been let go from your job. So for about a year, you were actively looking for work.
It was a tough year.
And you were applying for everything. And I just remember one time being like, yo, Indeed's not going to save you. Like, you've applied for everything on Indeed, from the lowest job to the highest jobs. And every single thing kept being a no. You applied for jobs where people actually did know you. And you should have gotten an opportunity, and you got ghosted. People knew me and should have been like, oh, I know Mandy, that's her husband, and literally nothing. And so there's no explanation for that, in my opinion, other than like, yo, literally all those doors had to be closed so that, you were ready for this one when it opened.
And so that the favor of God in opening doors would be the thing that takes center stage.
Right. There's no other explanation.
There's no other explanation.
You didn't hustle. You didn't.
Yeah.
You did for everything else.
I was making empanadas for a whole year and wondering, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
What is this going to lead to? Where is this going? Am I just going to be making empanadas out my kitchen forever? Like, this is not making ends meet all the way. It's only helping financially. Like, Lord, I need some answers. And it took us obeying, right? And then us trusting. So obeying the prompting we had to, like, you know what? We got to give God what's His. We got to do better, tighten up. We have to trust, right? Let's trust God with this month where I can't work. And then boom, doors open. Well, here I am a year later, and I am right back. I was asked back to the same school that started it all.
It's so weird that it was only a year ago, because it kind of feels like you've been doing this work forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's wild.
Yeah, very wild. So if I can think of a seashell story, that's probably the one that comes to mind, is like, yo, the faithfulness of God. And then to also circle back a year later and just remind us, He's got us. He's with us. He knows everything we need, and He's already 10 steps ahead of us.
Yeah, because oppositely, Conversely, my story is the opposite, right? So like I've mentioned on here plenty of times, but left my position in October and my full-time job, and I literally never thought that'd be possible to do because my job was like predictable income and yours was contracted. So it was like whatever work you get is what you get. And so anyway, whatever happened leading up to that moment, I don't know. I feel like I blacked out during that season, but I ended up leaving my job and a lot of mixed feelings about it, you know? Like I knew it was the right thing to do for sure. That was never really a question, but I don't have any other details after that. And so it was like, am I looking for another job? Am I not looking for a job? It feels really weird not to work, and I'm an able-bodied human. I should probably go back to like working full time at a very, traditional job is kind of what I was thinking. And so I would get on LinkedIn and Indeed and do the exact same thing you did. To click on every job. Even if it was jobs I didn't even want, which was what you were doing. It's like jobs I don't even want. It's just like, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I don't know. I have this feeling like I don't think the Lord asks you to take a leap of faith to just go right back into the thing that he asked you to take a leap of faith about. Right. So I kind of had that feeling, but I just felt like, what am I supposed to be doing? And so I did get I had a couple of conversations with a few nonprofits, and one of them seemed like it seemed like, okay, this makes sense. Maybe I'll start working there. Like there was a position available for some part-time development work, and it just felt like, okay, it makes sense. It's what I've done. I like their organization. I like their founder. That would be great. But then the more I kept thinking about it and praying about it, the more it just felt like, I think that it's not the right time. Right. Like, I think it's not the right time and the right fit and whatever. And I don't have like a ton of information. I just know that if I went back to my 18-year-old self, the advice I would give her is trust your gut, listen to your gut. Yeah. / the Holy Spirit. So like, I just am practicing that now, right? I'm 42. I would have told my 18-year-old self, if I could go back, start then, And so I just had this feeling of like, I do not think this is the right yes to give. And around the same time, I had a friend who was looking for some help cleaning Airbnbs. And at first I was like, no, I'm not gonna, like, that seems like, am I just saying yes because I don't know what else to say yes to. But I actually felt like drawn to it, and I was like, I don't know, I'll just reach out and see if she needs help. And she did. And so we went to the first Airbnb to clean it, and it was like this beautiful like farmhouse vibe in the woods, like so relaxing. And babe, it was so weird. Like I cleaned this Airbnb and the children would be like, oh, you clean other people's houses? What about our house? Okay. So it's not like we have a spotless house, and I think it's rude and it's whatever. But anyway, there's something about cleaning this like Airbnb that I know someone's going to walk in and have this experience, hopefully, where they feel like, wow, somebody thought about me, prepared a place for me to come and relax. Yeah. And they even thought about like wiping off the smudges on the light switch or the wall going down the basement that people dragged their little grubby fingers on, or scrub the couch cushions because there was like some coffee spilled on it, or whatever it is, right? Yeah. I try to think through the lens of like, when we go on vacation, what are the things I call the company about and complain about? Or what I would want to call them about. And I think like that's the experience I want to give somebody. And the weirdest thing was like, yeah, like if you would come to my house and you would ask like, hey, do you love cleaning your house? I'd be like, no, not really. Right. But like to do it at an Airbnb that's like this kind of serene location, it's very weird. I don't really know how to describe the moment, but it was like I felt so grounded. Yeah. And I felt like a part of myself come back to life that I haven't felt in a really long time. Like a lightness about me, a lightness. And I will say, like, a lot of the work I've done in my adult years a lot of it was guided by money or just like needing a job because I was a single parent, or we had a family to, whatever. A lot of it was guided by that. And a lot of it involved leading people and working and like work that was about a mission, you know, whether that was a church or a nonprofit, but it's like this mission work.
Yeah.
And putting all your energy into promoting a mission, just in my experience, then what that leaves after work is not a lot of energy left.
Sure.
So I went and cleaned this Airbnb, and in all senses, babe, like on a resume, that looks the craziest, right? Like to go from a director to like, hi, I clean Airbnbs. Like that is what no one would say, like, yo, you just keep moving up that ladder. That's not what that is.
Right.
And as someone who likes to achieve, I like to achieve. It makes me feel like that can be a whole nother podcast episode, or I could just say it now, I guess, in 2 sentences. But there's some deep belief that achieving will equal love. Achieving equals acceptance. Okay. So like just that. Right. So I love achieving. So promotions, all that matter to me. Because it does make me feel like, okay, you are worth something.
Right.
Like that's how I figure that out. But the weird thing is, like, cleaning, which isn't anything that anybody brags about, it was like the most joy I had felt in so long.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And the thought of like making someone's experience great.
Yeah.
I just like get hype about it.
Yeah.
I love all the little touches and all the things, and it's not even my property.
Yeah.
Like the reviews that get left for the property being clean, like no one knows it's me. Right. You know, like on The Office when Dwight, he left the office and then all the plants died and nobody knew who was watering all the plants.
Right.
That whole time the plants were just alive.
Yeah.
But then Dwight leaves and they realize like, oh, it was Dwight.
Yeah.
Like for someone who likes achievement, no one will ever know that Mandy cleaned that place. There's literally no one that will know.
Nah.
And I will never get one accolade. Mm-mm. And it's so odd because I feel the best doing it.
Yeah.
And I get to do it with our daughter, and like I get to help my friend, and I get to let people have a great experience, and I get to have moments that I can actually like reconnect with myself.
Yeah.
Because I think like, you know, we've shared on here our stories a little bit, and, you know, as I was reflecting today and I was, you know, spending some time reading my Bible and praying for our family and stuff. And I just had this moment where I started to reflect on my life. And, you know, I went to school to be a teacher. I loved being a teacher, but I only taught for 1 year.
Yeah.
Besides like all the things you do in college, like all the placements you have, but I only taught for 1 year. I taught 2nd grade and then I quit. And, you know, people will ask, oh, would you ever go back to teaching again? And I used to say no, but like lately I've been like, man, I do love you, and I get to go and talk to students, you know, for your job, and I get to tag along sometimes, and it really is fun. Or Olive will bring her friends over here and sit at the kitchen counter and we'll chat, and it really is so fun. And anyway, I just, you know, I miss some things about it. And so I was just thinking today, like, man, I wonder what life would have been like if I kept teaching. And then I really thought about like why I left, and why I left teaching was because I felt like I had to choose between keeping my job as a teacher, or kind of my marriage and life falling apart, because being a teacher was a lot of work. It was like our first year of marriage, not me and you, like the first time I was married.
Yeah.
And, it like was, I guess, too much, and I wasn't, his words, not mine, meeting his emotional needs. And so he was kind of finding that elsewhere.
Yeah. And
it was this moment where I was like, well, I guess in order to save my marriage, I need to quit my job. Like, it's too much. My job's too much. And it's not what the most important thing is. The most important thing is this, you know, is my marriage. And so I quit. And I was young. I was 22. I didn't know like anything.
Yeah.
And so I didn't like expect anything. I don't even think I got an apology for for anything that happened. But I didn't even know I needed one.
Right.
That's the thing. Like, I didn't even know. We just kind of kept barreling on with life. And that wouldn't be the last time I heard the phrase, you're not meeting my emotional needs. Right. And so the crazy thing is, like, I spent a lot of my life, and I realized that this morning I was like kind of staring across the living room at our family picture, at myself in the family picture. Sorry, I was looking at everybody. Like, I love everybody, but like I was just looking at me because it felt like it was somebody else, right? And I was just looking at me. I don't know if you've ever done this, but like, and I just said, sorry, I just said out loud, like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry that I spent 10 years betraying you, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because it wasn't the last time I was going to do that. You know, then we go to Mexico, which was also my dream to do since I was a little girl, to go and be a missionary. And that job was really hard too. I couldn't have anticipated how hard it would be, but it was work that seemed really meaningful to me, to like work at the safe house with the girls rescued from human trafficking, to be a part of that movement. And it felt really meaningful to me. But I remember a moment there where I was like, okay, what's it going to take for you to be happy? You know, saying to him, I need you to be happy. You're not happy. And my exact words were, what do you need to come back to life?
Yeah.
And so we ended up leaving and him taking a job in Wisconsin. And that was the second time that I like betrayed myself voluntarily, I guess, you know, to say like.
Because you would have stayed in Mexico doing the work you were doing.
Yeah. But I voluntarily was just like, this dream obviously is ruining lives, so I'm going to stop doing it so that you can be happy.
Yeah.
And just to be fair, like, there's two sides to every story. So, like, if either one of our exes was on here, they would have their version of it too, which is valid and real, like their experience, right? So it wouldn't be exactly the same. And I think that's important to remember when anybody's telling their version of, you know, their divorce, their marriage, whatever. But my experience was like every single time it was something that I dreamed of, the thing I took away from it was it's not working for our marriage, so I have to stop.
Or it's not working for this other person.
Right.
So
I need to stop and do whatever it takes to like whatever. Yeah. And the ironic thing is like I betrayed myself for a whole decade only to actually be betrayed.
Yeah.
And it's like for all those years, I stopped doing everything that, and here's what I'll say. Like, I think we live in a culture that's very obsessed with self. We do. I don't need to, like, that's stupid to even say out loud. We all know it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you have any teenagers in your house or any young people, you know, you could be in the middle of a conversation and they're literally just taking photos of themselves in the middle of your conversation. Okay. Like this is normal.
Yeah.
And if you see a bunch of them hanging out together, they're all just doing it. Like it's like normal. Right. So it's like very self-obsessed culture. So there's always this piece where I'm like, when I say I'm betraying myself, I don't want it to sound like that, but when you betray yourself, I feel like you ignore who God made you to be. You ignore the purpose that you have. Yeah. Because you and I weren't created for the purpose of each other.
Correct.
Right? You and I were created for a purpose outside of each other. Facts. And coming together is still to achieve those purposes. Yep. But I would say in my first marriage, it was like I just let go of everything because it felt like it kept causing problems. My dreams kept causing problems was like my takeaway. Yeah. And then I realized one day, like, yo, I like resent this person because I've had to say no to everything, you know? And so that was like a whole nother layer. It just, when you betray yourself because you think it's saving something, you're actually just building up a bunch of resentment, which in the end is going to destroy whatever you have anyway. Yeah. And so there's no point in betraying yourself and how God made you and wired you. And in a healthy relationship, you would not ask the other person to do that because you know that a person who's walking in the gifts that God gave them and the purpose God gave them is the best version of themselves anyway. Right. Whether you get it or not. Like if my passion was like raising baby alligators and I was raising these alligators to be companion pets to people. I was just trying to think of something weird because puppies would be a lot easier. But like, just even if it's something a little off and it's like, I don't get it. But like, okay, like you rap. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I have to say it out loud, but like, I'm not a rapper. Wait, like what? Sometimes I rhyme accidentally and I'm very proud of myself, but like, right. So like, I'm not a rapper. I don't listen to a lot of rap music. I don't know the lingo. Like it's not a world I like existed in. Yeah. But it would be wild if I asked you to stop being into rap. If I asked you to like, can you please not rap? Like, I don't get it. Right? Yeah. Like, I don't get it. that would be weird. And actually, more than weird, it would be wrong.
Yeah.
So, like, baby alligators, rap, whatever.
Baby alligators and rap.
So, whatever it is, I feel like we are the best versions of ourselves when we are walking like in the way we were actually wired.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of years ignoring that. And when you ignore it and you don't live congruent to what's on the inside and what's on the outside, right? So all of my outward jobs on paper looked like they should make me happy.
Yeah.
So my resume or whatever I was doing or the title I had looked like I should love it. I should be happy. Oh, that matches everything, like your skill set and all this. But it wasn't matching on the inside.
Right.
So it didn't matter. And so when I was cleaning the first time, it was like finally my insides matched my outsides.
Yeah.
It was like,
yep.
Wait a second. I feel aligned for the first time in a long time. And sometimes we have to betray ourselves because we need money or we want money. And sometimes we betray what we really would love to do because money looks better and feels better, or we owe money to a lot of people. So we have to say yes to money over what the actual job is. And sometimes so we have to like betray ourselves in that way. But sometimes we do it in a relationship. A lot of times we do it in a relationship where we end up betraying ourselves because we think we need to save something.
Well, I don't even know that I would call it betraying if it's something that must be done. Because then I think you're just reprioritizing for a season. Back to the earlier conversation we were having about the container. Hey, I need money right now. I can't pursue the dream, but to get to the dream, to get to the calling that God has for me, I got to do this thing first. And then I'm going to come back to this. Right. So I think there's a difference between doing that in a healthy way where we reprioritize accordingly and saying no to the thing God gave us a talent for, God gave us a call to, because someone else doesn't like it or because it inconveniences somebody else. And then just like without hope of coming back to it and just saying, yeah, I'm done with this. I got to put it down because of this other reason.
I guess it's betraying yourself when you are saying yes to an opportunity to please other people instead of God or yourself. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
So maybe that's a better way to describe it. Because yes, there are times where you definitely have to just take jobs that are whatever. It's and that's the thing. You might have a job your whole life that like has nothing to do with your life's calling because your job isn't your life's calling. Always.
Ooh, that's another episode right there.
Yeah, like that's actually just true. Yeah. But I think what I'm trying to say is, am I taking jobs to impress people? There we go. That's what it is. Am I taking something to impress people so that I can say when I show up, oh, I'm this, this, and this at this organization because I actually am insecure or whatever. And I should be happy with this title. And maybe it's not even that you even are insecure or you know you are. Maybe it's just the path that you've been put on or the path that you chose a long time ago and you're just kind of in it at this point. But if you ever have a moment to pause and take an inventory and say, what would I be doing if I could choose anything?
Yeah.
Or am I aligned internally and externally, you know?
Yeah.
And so I guess for me, the inventory I would take and the honest assessment I would give is I've made a lot of decisions in my life to please other people. And I don't mean serve other people. I mean to please other people, to do it so that hopefully I will get their affirmation, their affection, their loyalty. Like I will make these decisions so that you don't leave, so that I feel better, so that I feel like I belong. But in order to belong, I have to betray myself.
Right. And
some people would say that's not real belonging. So the reality is I feel like I had this moment where it was like just as clear as I felt like I was supposed to leave my job, I felt the same way about cleaning Airbnbs. Yeah. It was like, this is the season for this kind of work. And I don't know, man, I'm like real excited about the kind of like cloths I use and like
you're into like it. I love it.
Yeah, I am. And I just really enjoy it. And I can see it becoming something bigger potentially, you know?
Yeah.
But even if it doesn't, I feel like it's a very restorative time. I feel like like I have an opportunity to heal, and I feel like when I looked across our living room at our family picture and I saw myself, and I almost I apologized to myself for like, yo, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
That like I have just ignored so much, because it doesn't make me show up as the best mom, the best wife, the best friend, the best whatever when I do that. And I think I have this opportunity to like have some clarity again, and to heal from some things, including needing accolades.
Yeah.
Like including achieving, including titles, including any of that I really care about, because I don't want to feel stupid, or I don't want to feel like I don't matter.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of us could say, right? Like it sucks to feel like you don't matter.
Yeah.
It sucks to like feel like a loser or a failure. Nobody likes that. So a lot of us are doing things in our life to avoid those crappy feelings.
Yeah.
But I think I have an opportunity to just like maybe hit the reset button. And maybe for once, like kind of walk in freedom from that, because that's a heavy weight to carry.
It is.
To always need accolades, or to always need achievements, or to always feel like you're hitting the mark, or hitting the next thing, or improving, or goals. And it's just like a lot. And it kind of feels like a gift to not have to do that right now.
Yeah, and I think the biggest achievement is being extremely faithful exactly where you are right now, no matter where you are. So if you are in season 1 or in season 10, that you remain faithful. Any one of us who are given any task, any job, any ministry opportunity, as long as we're faithful, we're achieving. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good question. As I'm hearing you process this out loud, I'm thinking, okay, so like, how do I stop myself from betraying myself again? Well, I think it's an honest conversation with myself where I ask, Gio, are you being faithful where you are right now? How will you get to the next thing? How will you be entrusted with the next thing if you're not being extremely faithful with what's in your hands right now? And so usually that can give me my next step. That can give me the mentality shift, so that I can get back to work, whatever work means.
And babe, you like love your work so much. It's very, if I ever, one time in the last year that I remember that I called you and said, hey, how did it go? And you were like, I mean, it was okay. A Gio okay is actually a bombed. Like if Gio just says it was okay, I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? Because for me, like if you ask me how to go, I'm like, yeah, it was okay. And that probably means it was like phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like it probably was fine. Everything was fine. But I'll say it's okay. Cool. When I call you, you normally like, yo, it was so dope, babe. It was awesome. It was great. Everything's great. So when I got the only okay, I was just like, oh man. But I like really can't remember a time where you've complained about work, where you don't like, you love what you do. And I think you are very aligned with like what you love to do and what you're getting to do in this season. But just a year or two ago, babe, you were kind of in your era of needing to be faithful wherever God opened a door.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of different jobs. And I have a lot of empathy for you now. And I don't know if I did a very good job then because I'm kind of living it, where, you can't always see how all the little pieces are going to be put together, right? You can't always see that. And I think, anyway, so I'm like really happy for you that you get to do what you love to do. And I'm really happy more so that it allows me to take a minute, to like also find my way.
I'm equally happy for you. I mean, you get to use your hands and your strength and your energy in a way that also allows your mind some time and space to breathe.
Well, that's what I'll say too. I've never really had a job where I was active as an adult. Like I have a lot of jobs where I've sat at a computer.
Yeah.
And so to be active and on my feet and like hitting my like step count, like just from cleaning a house, feels really good. And for the days where I have more like, where I feel more anxious or I have like bottled up whatever energy, I've noticed it really helps with that. Like just moving really helps settle my mind, my heart, like all of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like really grateful for all those aspects. I'm really grateful. But what I was going to say when you were talking about, you know, being faithful and not betraying yourself, you know, for me, I feel like when I said I could go back to my 18-year-old self, and what I would tell her is trust your gut. Like, listen, you aren't wrong.
Yeah.
I think we stop betraying ourselves when we start listening, trusting the Holy Spirit's voice, and obeying whether we have all the answers or not.
Right.
And so it might be crazy that, like, you know, I'm in my 40s and this is really like the first time I'm practicing this as much as I am now. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
leaving my job, then saying yes to this, and no to some other opportunities, and just really trying to lean into, okay, on paper, I should do this, that, and this. But internally, I feel like I need to go this other direction, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
And I keep seeing over and over again that, like, if I can just lean into that, then I will stop betraying myself, because it creates an inner peace, which is what we all want at the end of the day.
Yeah.
More than anything, we all want that inner peace.
Peace that's not circumstantial.
Exactly. And so when we have that inner peace and that inner rest, I think everything else can kind of fall into place, and we don't have to work so hard to achieve and get accolades and all of that, because we've already achieved it. We've got it. Mm-hmm. And all the other stuff is just a bonus, I guess. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, I felt like I had a really very, I don't know, healing or restorative moment this morning, unexpectedly, when I was sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
To just have some quiet time and read my Bible and stuff. And I feel like that moment was like, okay,
Yeah.
like, this is an opportunity to not repeat what I did for so long.
Right.
Because when you betray yourself and then you end up being betrayed, it's like layers on layers on layers. It becomes a very shattering moment. I think some people could go through a divorce and just kind of keep going, because you have a career, you have this, you have that. You didn't betray yourself in the process, right?
Right.
And so you can kind of keep moving. It doesn't feel as devastating, but because I look around and I see other people get divorced and I see them bounce back so fast, and I'm like, wow, like, I wonder what that's like. Because for me, it was like, because I had erased my whole identity, it felt like, just to save my marriage, it felt like when that crumbled, I had nothing left. It really felt like I was starting from nothing.
Yeah.
And I really was. I mean, I didn't have a house. I didn't have anything to my name.
Yeah.
And so it was like I was starting over. And I wasn't even working. I hadn't worked in 5 years. So, like, I had no career. I had nothing. And so it felt really shattering. And so I think that, like, it just creates a lot of layers, a lot of resentment, a lot more problems. We think betraying ourselves is going to solve something, but it ends up just creating a lot of problems, and it's never worth it. And I tell our teenagers this when it comes to, like, dating and stuff like that. I'm always like, hey, in a relationship, you have choices too. It's not just, hey, are you happy? Because that's the mistake I made. Are you happy? What do you need? And that was never reciprocated back that I can remember. Right. I could be wrong, but it wasn't like this mutual, okay, what do you need? What do you need? Now let's meet in the middle. It was like me always and voluntarily saying, I will set aside what I want or need because I would rather you be happy. But the problem was, it's just not exactly true.
Right.
Because I'd rather you be happy as long as it means that you don't leave me, you don't this, you don't that, right? You know what I mean? Like, as long as the circumstances bring peace,
right,
then I will betray myself for you. And so what I always tell our girls at this point is like, yo, you have a choice in a relationship. It's not just asking, well, what do you want? What would make you happy? What are we? Are we dating? Are we not? Are we this? Are we that? You have choices. You get to ask yourself, do I like this relationship? Am I my best self in this relationship? Do I have less anxiety? What do I feel in my body? Like, as far as anxiety goes, like, would my friends say that I'm a better version of myself in this relationship? Do I feel more alive? Do I feel aligned internally and externally, right? Like, you get to ask yourself all of that too.
And am I being faithful and true to me? Am I being faithful to God and his calling? Am I being faithful with all that I have going on in my life? by
being in this relationship.
You know?
And like we get to ask those questions too, and we get to give an answer.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's like this message I keep trying to share, because so many girls and women I think might be in the same boat as me. And I just feel like, but do you know that you get to ask questions too? And guess what? When you're just dating and you're like a teenager, this is the best time to start practicing this, because like you're not locked in.
And even if you are married like you were and you have this decision to make, do I continue down this dream career? Well, you get to ask these questions even then too.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because just because you are married doesn't mean you can't make some of these decisions differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said to you, like, I said, what would have happened if I would have just kept teaching?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, my marriage probably would have ended sooner. Yeah. I think by constantly betraying myself and accommodating, I probably just prolonged an inevitable divorce, honestly.
Which is scary for some who go into marriage saying divorce is not an option, as a means or maybe even as an excuse to not work through some hard stuff.
Yeah.
Well, divorce is not an option, so we're just going to barrel through. Well, divorce is an option.
Because it just takes one person to decide.
It takes one person to decide. Despite you being committed to this marriage, I'm still out of here.
Yeah.
So it's still worth the hard work of asking these hard questions and then getting from point A to point B through conversations.
Yeah. All right, babe. Well, thanks for being on here. This was a nice little reunion after several weeks off.
It was. This was fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and I hope you found something helpful in today's episode. If you ever have any topics that you want to hear about, any questions you have, anything that you'd love to hear me talk about or me and my sidekick talk about, we would love to know. So please let us know. And you can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook. That would be a great way to connect. And yeah, that would help me create content that feels relevant and helpful. And keep it fresh. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And we will in a couple weeks probably take a break and wrap it up for season 1 and take a little break before season 2 comes, because we have some new things we'd like to do for season 2, including video, not just audio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we need some time to like figure that out. But I still feel like I have a couple more weeks in me here for season 1. And so I'd like to finish that out strong. So if you have anything you want to hear us talk about or discuss on here, please let us know. And until then, friends, tarry on.